How's it going, everybody? Lampini here again, and today we are going to be going over Week 14 of the 2025 NFL season. We only have a couple more weeks left of the regular season as we go into the postseason. A lot of these games aren't going to really mean a whole lot, but some of them will have massive implications. So without further ado, let's get right into it. For Week 13, I did pretty well with my predictions. Bam. So I actually started off really badly. I got all three Thanksgiving games and the Black Friday game wrong. Packers upset the Lions, Cowboys upset the Chiefs, Bengals upset the Ravens, and then the Bears beat the Eagles. A lot to say about those four games, and then the Panthers upset the Rams, but everything else I got right. So I finished with 11-5 for that week in predictions. For the season, I am 127, 66, and 1. So again, another great round of predictions makes my win-to-loss ratio even higher. So make sure you guys check out my video before you make any bets, as I always say. So without further ado, let's get into Thursday Night Football for the picks. So for Thursday night, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the Detroit Lions. These are two teams in the hunt right now that are trying to make that last-minute playoff push. Cowboys are 6-5-1, and the Lions are 7-5. That tie is really hurting the Cowboys here. But the Cowboys have been an ascending team the past couple weeks. They found that having CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on each side of Dak Prescott makes for basically an uncoverable offense. And now their defense is starting to pick things back up again. So they look really, really dangerous, and they're peaking at the right time. Dak Prescott, in their game, they beat the Chiefs 31-28. Extremely close game that the Cowboys, they just couldn't be stopped. Dak Prescott was 27 of 39, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, a 100.4 passer rating. George Pickens had 6 receptions for 86 yards, 88 yards, and then CeeDee Lamb had 7 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. I mean, without a doubt, they are the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. You have 2 number 1 wide receivers, and not only 2 number 1 wide receivers, but you're looking at 2 top 10 wide receivers in the entire league. George Pickens, what he's able to do is just incredible, and we already know how good CeeDee Lamb is. As for the Lions, they fought extremely hard against the Green Bay Packers and just narrowly fell short. The Lions remind me a lot of the Chiefs this year, where it's clear that they're a good team with an explosive offense, and they play good teams extremely tough, but they just simply fall short. And they can't afford to have that happen against the Cowboys because this is make or break for both teams. And it's prime time on Thursday, so I'm very excited for this game. But the Lions had a chance against the Packers, but the Packers just converted way too many third downs on that last game-winning drive basically for them. The Lions weren't able to get the ball back. They weren't able to come back at the very end, and they ended up losing. Jared Goff, 20 of 26, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 132.9 passer rating. So again, it wasn't really his fault. I mean, the offense, like I said, is playing just fine. It's their defense letting too many points scored, letting opposing teams move the ball, and that is what's really hurting them. They're 7-5, still a very good team, but they really, really need to go on a heater this last stretch to get back into the playoff picture. It's going to be an incredible game, and I want to go for the Lions on this one, but honestly, the Cowboys have gotten their defense on track, and I think that their offense with CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, George Pickens, and even Javonte Williams, they just look unbeatable on offense. And I think the only way that a team is really going to defeat them is to outscore them and get the stops that they can. So with that being said, I am going with a surprising road victory for the Dallas Cowboys. I do think they're going to upset the Lions on this one. All right, so coming up next, we have the Washington Commanders at the Minnesota Vikings. And believe it or not, I am not doing gloom on the Washington Commanders right now. Yes, they were coming home. They were coming back from a bye, which usually means they're a lot fresher against a road team coming on a short week. So I think we played better because of that. But a lot of what I saw from the Commanders was good. You really get a feeling for how much better the offense rolls when Terry McLaurin is back on the field. He had 7 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. A lot of key third downs. It was the 4th down touchdown pass that got them into overtime in the first place. Zach Ertz, 10 receptions for 106 yards as well, so he did very well there. Marcus Mariota had a decent game. He threw the ball 50 times. He was 28 of 50 for 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, a 78.2 passer rating. His interception was a real boneheaded move. But what I am happiest about is our defense actually played well. We forced some turnovers. Bobby Wagner had a good interception. Dan Quinn took over defensive play calling, and it really, like, it has made a legitimate difference. We still have a lot of injuries that, like Dorrance Armstrong and this other guy on the edge, basically our 2 starting edge rushers were hurt. And as a result, we got no pass rush. But that being said, I think our defense did look a lot better. And if we don't have like a defensive coordinator in mind, I think Dan Quinn should be the defensive play caller because I think he's doing very well with the unit. And it's just another example of if I think Jane Daniels was in the game, I think we would have beaten the Broncos. And that is a huge testament to how good the Commanders actually are once they start getting healthy. The fact that I think the biggest loss right here was that we didn't have Jaden. We had a backup quarterback. And we almost beat a 10-2, 9-2 at the time Broncos team. That tells me that we are not a bad team like the Saints or the Titans are bad. We just had a bad stroke of luck, and that gives me optimism for next year because we're going to have a high draft pick regardless, right? And we're going against the Vikings, who I think is in one of the worst tailspins right now of any team. Max Brosmer was their starter. He threw 4 interceptions. I'm not even going to dignify him with a full stat line back here, but the Vikings basically, like, there's a lot to be said about them. They had Sam Darnold and they had Daniel Jones on their roster. Sam Darnold had a 35 touchdown season, played extremely well for them, won them 14 games. And I understand where they're coming from. They were put in a very difficult position where it's like you don't want your bridge quarterback to do too well because the rookie quarterback that you drafted and are going to be investing your future in is out. So like when he comes back, he's going to get his job back. But Sam Darnold had an incredible season, right? So they're like, what do we do? They were put in a very tough spot. They decided to go with their young quarterback that they drafted high and invested all this time in. And it's clear that it was the wrong choice. Now, there's a lot to be said about, you got to let a guy develop or, give him some time to develop. And, J.J. McCarthy is still very much a rookie. He tore his Achilles and missed all of last year. He missed a lot of time this year. I think the big problem is, like, when you watch some guys play, you can just see that they don't have it. A good example for me is the Zach Wilson effect, where you watch him and you're like, no, like, this isn't a guy who is raw and needs a couple starts to like get confident get confidence, right? He just looks outmatched and he looks like he doesn't belong on the football field. And that's what I like to call it, the Zach Wilson effect, like the Zach Wilson syndrome, shall we say. And JJ McCarthy has big Zach Wilson syndrome. So I don't know what they're going to do. I saw something online that said they should try and target Mac Jones. I think that's going to be the best, like, fire alarm move that they could do. I don't really know if they draft someone or what, but I think Mac Jones would be a good move for the Vikings. Nice, stable, solid, proven guy. He's going to get in there, and the hope is that he does what Sam Darnold did for them last year. But the Vikings QB situation is very difficult, but if Mac Jones does well enough for them, then he may be a good long-term starter for them. You know what I mean? He might be like a Brock Purdy type or a Sam Darnold type or a Geno Smith type where he gets his second chance and he gets placed in as a starter. I'm actually going to go with the Commanders on this one. There is a chance that Jane Daniels plays, I heard, but even if Marcus Mariota plays, I think the Vikings have been beaten down so much, and the Commanders are getting players back. They're from injury. They're regaining a lot of positive momentum that they didn't have in the midway point of the season. So I do think they're going to win a couple games down the stretch, and they might end with like 5 or 6 wins. I think going for the win in overtime was important, like, because a loss benefits us just as much as a win does. You know what I mean? So I think that maybe they end with 5 or 6 wins, and they say, all right, it wasn't our season. We had a lot of games not go our way, and we had a lot of injuries that didn't go our way. Last year was basically our ceiling. This is our floor. Let's see what we can do next year. The one thing that I am confident about and what I'm happy about with the Commanders is that they got Joe Witt out of defensive coordinator. This was his first defensive coordinator job, and I just think he's not good enough for it. So if anything, what happened this year kind of accelerated that process a little bit. So if Dan Quinn calls plays, I'll be happy about it. Maybe we get another, like, a head coach that goes down to a defensive coordinator, kind of like what we're doing with Cliff Kingsbury, because I think our offense is still very good. So that being said, I'm going to go with the Commanders. I do think they're going to win. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, not much to say about this one. The Seahawks beat the Vikings 26-0, and the Jets beat the Falcons. The Falcons are kind of in Minnesota Vikings territory where they're in an absolute tailspin. The quarterback that they drafted to be their future has a lot of question marks because Michael Penix had season-ending knee surgery. They have Kirk Cousins, but it's like you're still in QB purgatory. Thank goodness they still have Kirk Cousins, but I mean they've had decent quarterback play all season, and they still are terrible. I think they have 3 wins. This has been an absolute bust of a season for the Falcons. That is a bust not because of injury. Their game plan they just didn't execute, and this is why they've been one of the least successful teams of the decade so far. I'm going with the Seahawks. They are one of the most successful teams this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made a Super Bowl run, but we will see because their roster is still relatively new to the playoffs. We'll see if they crash out in the first round. It remains to be seen, but I am going with the Seahawks. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Buffalo Bills. Both teams are coming off of victories. Joe Burrow had his first game back, and it was a great return to form for Joe Burrow. He was 24 of 46, 261 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 83.7 passer rating. They rushed him back, and he played like Joe Burrow. Not much really to say about that. That was very encouraging of them. When Joe Burrow's on the field, the Bengals do well. It's like the first 2 games, remember, the Bengals were 3-0 at one point, I believe. They were definitely 2-0 with Joe Burrow, and everything was going great. I think in terms of a most valuable player, you're looking at it with these 2 teams. If the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, they are a 4-8 team, right? And the Bills are now 7-4. And without Josh Allen, they could be 4-7. It really is the Josh Allen show with them, and it's getting more and more apparent. So both of these teams, historically, not very good franchises, but they have their franchise guys. They're both potential Hall of Famers, depending on how their career goes. So as for the Bills, they played a tough game against the Steelers. It started out tough, and then they just started to annihilate them. We'll talk more about the Steelers in the next game that they're in. But another must-win for the Bills. They have been very inconsistent this year. And with Joe Burrow now playing, this is like Jane Daniels coming back for the Commanders. I think the Bengals are a dangerous team. I think they're a 9 or 10 win team with Joe Burrow. They're just not Super Bowl contenders like they were 3-4 years ago. It's like in the beginning of the season when I was saying that they get overrated because they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all this talent on offense, but their defense is god-awful, right? But their defense played well against the Ravens. The Ravens only scored 14 points. They had like 5 turnovers or something crazy like that. So we'll talk about that when we get to that game. But I am going to go with the Bills on this one. They have more to play for, but don't be surprised if you see an upset because a healthy Joe Burrow can beat anyone in the league unless his defense gives up 50 points. Then we'll see. But I'm going with the Bills on this one. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans at the Cleveland Browns. This is the tank bowl to end all tank bowls. The Titans look like they're going to go 1-16. The only thing the Browns have going for them, well, they have 2 things going for them. Shedeur Sanders getting reps, gaining confidence. I think he's going to be their starter next year. So a lot of optimism there with the Browns that they have a guy that they can actually feel confident in at quarterback, which is pretty cool. And Myles Garrett has 19 sacks. He's going to be on pace for breaking the record, and I think he's going to have a field day with a bad Titans offensive line. So don't be surprised if Myles Garrett gets a couple sacks. And maybe he breaks the sacking record in week 14 with 4 more games to go. So I don't know. We'll see. He pretty much has Defensive Player of the Year locked up. I'm going with the Browns. The Titans are such a bad team that I can see the Browns just winning purely because Myles Garrett just controls the game. And I think Shedeur Sanders will do well as well. This will be a very encouraging game for him. He's going to get some confidence, make some good plays, and I think the Browns are ultimately going to win. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Again, 2 bottom feeders. The Dolphins are tanking their draft stock by winning a lot of games. Like they beat the Saints. They're now 4-7. And all that's going to do is just hurt their draft stock because Tua is not their future. I think Mike McDaniel is. Devon Achane is their future. He had 22 carries for 134 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, capped off with this amazing 29-yard touchdown run here. The Dolphins have talent on their roster, and I think Mike McDaniel keeps them in a lot of games because he's a very good head coach. But they're suffering from backing the wrong horse in Tua Tagovailoa, and I don't know if they draft a quarterback or they stick with him, but they're in the worst kind of purgatory right now. They're in the worst kind of QB purgatory. It's not an experienced bridge quarterback. it is your franchise quarterback that is starting to show signs of decline. So I always say it, you're backing the wrong horse, right? And that's what the Dolphins did with Tua, and it is hurting their franchise for the long term. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets cause an upset. They did beat the Falcons after all, and Tyrod Taylor's a respectable backup, so he could cause the upset. I don't really know. But I am going to go with the Dolphins. I do think the Dolphins are going to win. But again, you can skip this one. There's not really much to say about this game. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers had a very much needed victory against the Arizona Cardinals. They won 20-17. They snapped a 3-game losing streak against the Patriots, Rams, and Bills. The Buccaneers have really been going through it the last couple weeks. They were very, very good. They looked like they were going to make some noise, and the Panthers started to win. The Panthers are now 6-6. They're creeping up on them. So this win by the Buccaneers was very, very needed. Baker Mayfield, 18 of 28, 194 yards and a touchdown and 96.4 passer rating. He was in conversations for MVP, but he started to skid a little bit, and he hurt his non-throwing shoulder. He did come in. He did play this game still, and he did play well against a bad Cardinals team. It's a bad Saints team as well. So I do think the Buccaneers are going to win. But I see the Buccaneers limping into the playoffs and being a first-round exit, really, because they are not playing at their strongest right now. But they got to take these wins when they can to keep the Panthers away from them. Losing this game would put them at 6-6 and in real trouble for the Panthers to jump over them. So I'm going with the Bucs, though. I do think they're going to win. Now, this game is going to be a lot more interesting. We have the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts have gone 1-3 the last 4 weeks and are really, really starting to skid. Daniel Jones was 14 of 27 for 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 101 passer rating. I don't think that Daniel Jones is the reason they're losing these games, but they lost a bad one to the Houston Texans, 20-16. Texans are really starting to dig themselves out of that hole that they put themselves early on in the season. They could make a wild card push. The Colts they got off to a great start. They were 7-1 at one point, but now they're 8-3. So they are really, really in some trouble. Actually, no, they're not 8-3. This is outdated. They're 8-4, and the Jaguars are 8-4. So this will decide the AFC South, really. The Colts looked good early on in the season and have started to skid. The Jaguars, on the other hand, have not looked great, but they've had some impressive victories. They blew out the Chargers. They blew out the Titans, which is to be expected. Trevor Lawrence was 16 of 27 for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 111.5 passer rating. So maybe the Jaguars are peaking at the right time. They're 8-4, so they're looking very, very good. They kind of remind me of the Commanders of last year, where they're facing easy competition. They're facing an easy schedule, and they're beating them. So, like they're a good team, and they're beating them, but they haven't really been tested. This is going to be a huge game for both teams to see where both teams are. If the Colts win, they've regained the momentum that they had early on in the season. If the Jaguars win, then they are trending up at the perfect time at the end of the season and might make a Super Bowl push, which is crazy to say coming from Jacksonville. But I got to strike where the iron is hot. I'm going with the Jaguars. I think momentum is on their side, and I think the Colts have really, really blown a couple games recently, particularly the Chiefs and Texans, which were 2 very winnable games. I'm going with the Jaguars, and they will take control of the AFC South. All right, guys, so this is another massive game. This is going to decide the AFC North. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens, one of the more heated rivalries in the NFL right now, but both teams are coming off of very, very disappointing losses. We'll talk about the Ravens first. Lamar Jackson was 17 of 32 for 246 yards and an interception, a 65.4 passer rating. He has not looked great. He really has not looked great. Ever since his injury, he's done just kind of barely enough to get by, and that's allowed them to win a lot of games, but they really laid an egg on Thanksgiving. At home against the division rival, they really, really needed to do well, and they laid an egg. Lamar Jackson threw an interception. There were a lot of turnovers. They really, really struggled. I think the only guy who really did well in this game was Derrick Henry. Only 10 carries, 60 yards, though, and a rushing touchdown. He had a really impressive 28-yard rushing touchdown, and he also had like a 40-yard reception. So he had over 100 scrimmage yards. Derrick Henry is at 1,000 scrimmage yards and 10 rushing touchdowns, which I think is his eighth consecutive season, 7th or 8th consecutive season of 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards from scrimmage. There was the one year he got injured. I think that was 2022. 1,000 yards from scrimmage and over 10 rushing touchdowns. He is chasing records now. He's about to pass Jim Brown for all-time rushing yards, which will make him a first ballot Hall of Famer if he isn't already, which I think he is. But I mean, the Ravens really need to bounce back after that loss. As for the Steelers, I think, reached close to rock bottom in their game against the Bills. It was very close early on, and then they just completely, the wheels came off of the wagon, and the Bills won 26-7. Aaron Rodgers was 10 of 21 for 117 yards, a 65 passer rating. He got lit up on a Joey Bosa sack. Mason Rudolph came in, threw 3 passes. All were incomplete. One was an interception. I think the Steelers have hit rock bottom. The Steelers are what Aaron Rodgers is right now. Old, tired, and washed up. Aaron Rodgers looks like his body's breaking down. He has injuries to his non-throwing hand, his wrist. He's gutting it out and he's playing it out, but he's a 42-year-old man in a young man's game. And I think we've been spoiled by what Tom Brady has been able to do at age 42, 43, 44, 45. He is the exception and not the rule. And we're really starting to see it now with Aaron Rodgers. He's struggling to stay healthy. And when he takes sacks like he did, it's not doing him any favors. And the Steelers defense didn't look great. They need to bounce back this game because right now the Steelers are facing the same script that they've had for the better part of a decade, 7-8 years. They haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season, I believe, when they lost to Saxonville. Yeah, I think that was the last time. They haven't won a playoff game since then, but they've been to the playoffs 5 times, I think, and they've gotten blown out every single time. This is the Steelers' script. They followed this for the last 7 years. Start the season strong, begin to skid around the midway point, barely limp into the playoffs with 10-9 wins, get blown out in the wild card. That is what the Steelers are facing now. They started out great, and it just seems like every single year they run out of steam. And I think Mike Tomlin's winning record streak is ultimately doing more harm than good to this team. I thought that getting Aaron Rodgers here would be okay, they finally have unequivocally a stable quarterback, a guy that's done it before. He has decades of experience. He's going to be able to right the ship because for the longest time we thought that the Steelers had a great roster for just a quarterback away, and it's not looking like that. It's a problem when the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, who, albeit, still has a lot of juice left. He still has his arm. He still played some good games. His body is starting to crumble down with injuries, but he still has his arm and he still has his experience. He's still trying, but he's playing like how Justin Fields and Russell Wilson played with the same Steelers roster, and that's a problem that when you have a competent quarterback now, competent in inverted commas, you're still playing the exact same brand of football. And I think now it's time for Mike Tomlin to go. If they get blown out in the playoffs again, Mike Tomlin has to go. The Steelers need to go in a different direction. And if that means being 6-11 one year, it's what they're going to have to do because they have been treading water with a cinder block tied to them for the last 8 years. They need to stop treading water and they need to focus on cutting that cinder block off so they can finally be set free and start a full rebuild and move on. And that's what's really the problem with the Steelers. I think that this is going to be more of a get-right game for the Ravens than the Steelers because we've seen this script so many times with the Steelers where they start strong, begin to skid, and then basically limp into the playoffs and then get blown out. I don't even think they're going to limp into the playoffs this time. I think they're just going to outright miss it. And if that happens, then Mike Tomlin's got to go. I think anything short of winning a playoff game Mike Tomlin's got to go. That's the only thing that I think is going to save his job. The Ravens need this because their division is extremely weak right now. And there is statistically a chance for the Bengals to get back in and possibly steal the division from them. So that is incredibly embarrassing. The Ravens have done all this work to get back into the spot that they're in. I do think they're going to bounce back. I'm going with the Ravens. And now we come to the 4 o'clock slate. We have the Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to be quick with this one. The Broncos are going to win. The Raiders are enhancement talent at this point. The worst rebuild in the NFL right now, one of the worst teams in the league. The Broncos are one of the best teams in the league. They have one of the best defenses, albeit they struggled against us. But again, bear in mind, we were coming off of a bye, playing at home, and the Broncos were doing a short week road game. And I think that does go into effect, making the game a lot closer than it maybe could have been. Still proud of my Commanders, though. But the Broncos are going to win. It's a divisional round matchup, so anything can happen. But I just don't think the Raiders have the talent, and the Broncos have the defense. Bo Nix has played okay. He's been an average quarterback, and I think it's been hidden by how well the rest of the Broncos roster has played. But they're going to win this game, no problem. I'm going with the Broncos. Next up, another great game. We have the Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. The winner of this game takes control of the NFC North. Packers are 8-3-1. The Bears are 9-3. The Bears are the number 1 seed, actually, I think now that the Rams lost. The Bears are the number 1 seed. And I will say, this game against the Eagles made me a believer in them. I always said they were fraudulent. I don't think they are anymore. I think they have a winning formula, and I think that it's showing. What they did against the Eagles was crazy. The Eagles' defense had no answer for them. Kyle Monangai had 22 carries for 130 yards and a touchdown, and then DeAndre Swift had 18 carries for 125 yards and a touchdown. They had 2 100-yard rushers in that game. And then Caleb Williams, 17 of 36 for 154 yards, a touchdown, a pick, a 56.9 passer rating. Still not a great game by Caleb Williams, but he can play game manager and he can pull out plays when he needs to. Everything is going right for the Bears, but I don't think they're going to beat the Packers. I do not think they're going to beat the Packers. I think that the Packers have been a lot more of an impressive team. Jordan Love was 18 of 30 for 234 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a 124.2 passer rating. He absolutely carved up the Lions, and I think the Packers are still a very solid team, and I do think at home the Packers own the Bears. The Bears are going to be okay. They're still going to make the playoffs, and they're still going to win plenty of games after this, but I do think the Packers are going to beat them on this night. I think they're going to be the better team. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. The Rams suffered their first loss in a while against the Panthers, 28-31. Matt Stafford also matched his interceptions for the season in this game. He was 18 of 28, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 85.9 passer rating. I watched this game, and I think that if the Rams were going to lose, they were going to lose like this. They weren't outclassed, so to speak. They were driving, and they were very close to getting into field goal range, and the Panthers had a great strip sack of Matt Stafford. He hit him behind the back. Stafford coughed it up, and the Panthers won. I would attribute that more to it being a good defensive play by the Panthers and not Stafford fumbling the game away, so to speak, because when you're popped from the back like that, it's hard to not cough it up. But the Rams were in position to win. The Panthers just made a great play and managed to win it. So I'm not too worried about the Rams. I do still think they're the best team in the league right now. It's hard to finish out with winning. This is going to be a get-right game for them. Stafford, I still think, played well. I still think that he played with a lot of confidence despite the 2 interceptions. Those are really the only 2 mistakes he really made in the game. And I don't really see them dropping to the Cardinals, so I think this is going to be a get-right game for them. I think Matt Stafford's going to play well. I think the whole team's going to play well. I have the Rams winning. I'm going with the Rams. Next up, another incredible game. This is on Sunday night for their playoff lives. We have the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs played well again against the Cowboys. They just fell short. The best way I can describe this Chiefs team is, remember last year when they were winning every single 1-score game, they were blocking kicks, they were winning by the skins of their teeth every single game. Well, they're 1-score games now, but they're not winning them all this time. That is the difference, is they're not winning them all. They're winning some of them. They beat the Colts, but they lost to the Cowboys. The Chiefs basically need to win out if they're going to make the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I think it is possible. Mahomes was not the reason they lost this game. He had a phenomenal game. He was 23 of 34, 261 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 129.7 passer rating. One of the plays he made was just absolutely bonkers. He made 2 Cowboys defenders miss, chucked the ball downfield to a wide open wide open receiver, Xavier Worthy, and like he's still the best quarterback in the league, and he's still a top 5 all-time quarterback. Like he reminds us constantly with some of these plays, but they are fighting for their lives right now. The Texans, on the other hand, have been playing a lot better. They are 6-5. They're not in the playoff picture either, but they are fighting to get it. And like I said, they've been playing a lot better. They barely squeaked by the Colts, but they did still win. CJ Stroud was 22 of 35 for 276 yards and an interception, a 75.4 passer rating. CJ Stroud is still not playing great. So there's still a lot to be said about that. I think that, God, this is such a toss-up. I do think the Chiefs are going to win, though. It's at Arrowhead. It's prime time. They know what's at stake. Their defense is great, but I don't think CJ Stroud is going to be able to put the team on his back and that he's going to outduel Patrick Mahomes, basically. It's going to be a great game. The Chiefs need to win. I think they're going to. They're going to need a lot of help to get themselves back into playoff contention. But it basically starts with them winning game after game after game. They basically need to win out to have a chance. I'm going with the Chiefs, though. All right, guys, last but not least, we have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Chargers. The Eagles are now 8-4. Their 4 losses have both been back-to-back, so they've lost 2 straight. Now, this is the other time they've lost 2 straight. They got really embarrassed by the Bears. It was a bad showing. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. I was unfortunately working on Black Friday, but it was a very, very bad showing by the Eagles, and I am concerned that they are going to stumble into the playoffs in a similar way that they did in 2023. If you guys remember what the Eagles have been the last 3 years, 2022 looked like a juggernaut, made the Super Bowl, almost won, barely came up short and lost. 2024, juggernaut team, played great, won the Super Bowl that time. The year in between, they started like 8-1, 9-1, and then they limped their way into the playoffs and then lost in the wild card. They had a catastrophic collapse. It seems as though the only thing that can beat the Eagles is themselves, and it seems like it's going down that road again. The Jalen Hurts criticism still continues, despite a decent game on paper being the important word. 19 of 34, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception, an 84.2 passer rating. A.J. Brown with a good game, 10 receptions for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I don't know. Like, this is going to be a big statement game for the Eagles to see where they stand. As for the Chargers have fallen under a lot of teams' radars, I think, because the last 3 weeks they beat up on a Raiders team in the 4 o'clock slate. Not a lot of people watched that game. Week before they were on a bye, and the week before that they got blown out by the Jaguars. Saying that, they're 8-4 still. They're comfortably in the playoff picture. I think they've fallen under a lot of teams' radars. Justin Herbert is battling a hand injury. It's his non-throwing hand, though, so he should still be able to play. I'm going with the Chargers on this one. I think they're going to win, and I think the Eagles are going to drop 3 straight. And the big problem here is the little NFC East streak of the non-repeating divisional winners for the last 20 years. It looks like the Cowboys might keep that streak alive. It's basically been Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders in 2020, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys. So the Giants haven't won the division since 2011. We've actually won the division 2 times since they have, which I think is pretty crazy. But the Cowboys have a chance to snag the division from them. It may happen. I'm going with the Chargers. I think they're going to win Monday night, and it's going to be a tough blow for the Eagles. All right, so that concludes my predictions for Week 14. But as you all know, we're now going to go over the playoff picture. Boom. So with the playoff picture, we're going to start off with the NFC. Still a lot to talk about here. There's a lot of moving parts that are still going on. You can see that the Chicago Bears are the number 1 seed now at 9-3. Saying that, the Bears are 9-3. The Rams are 9-3. The Seahawks are 9-3. The 49ers are 9-4. The Packers are 8-3-1. The NFC is loaded right now. And then you have the 7-5 Buccaneers right there. I mean, they are loaded. I think that this year in particular, maybe I could be wrong, but there's some top-heavy teams in these playoffs. When you look at the playoff picture, only 3 teams really jump out. You have the 7-5 Lions. They could very easily jump back into the playoff picture if one of these teams suffers a loss. If one of these playoff teams suffers a loss, you know what I mean? If the 49ers, Packers, or Seahawks, if any of them suffer a loss, the Lions can get one step closer. The Cowboys are 6-5-1. A Cowboys win and an Eagles loss does not guarantee them jumping in. The Eagles will be 8-5, and the Cowboys will be 6, 7, 5, and 1. So they won't jump in to the Eagles spot just yet, but it's one step closer for them. The Panthers are on a bye. They are 7 and 6. So they are very dependent on the Buccaneers falling. The Panthers can get in their own way, through the division. The Lions are trying to get in through the wild card because I don't think that they're going to leapfrog the Packers or the Bears for the division, and the Cowboys are trying to steal the division from the Eagles. A lot of things are going on in the NFC, and it's a lot of excitement here. I think teams that are safe, teams that I don't think are going to skid and are going to make the playoffs, Rams, Bears, Packers, Seahawks, I think are all pretty safe right now. I think it would really take something catastrophic for them to really lose it. I think kind of the same goes for the 49ers as well. I think the two teams that I really think are threatened are the Buccaneers losing their division spot and the Eagles losing their division spot for the Cowboys. A lot needs to happen for the Lions to get in, but I wouldn't count them out just yet because if they beat the Cowboys on Thursday night, they're right back in the thick of things. You know what I mean? So now we come to the AFC. Boom. So the Patriots are the number 1 seed. They have the overall best record in the NFL at 11 and 2. Now they haven't had their bye yet, and they've had a very, very easy schedule, saying that they are still 11 and 2. Number 2 seeds, we have the Denver Broncos, so it kind of makes you feel good that the Commanders were able to do well against them, right? They're the number 2 seed, and they have the second best record in the NFL. Number 3 seed, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have now leapfrogged the Colts and are now leading the division. They're playing the Colts this week, so that could easily flip-flop. Colts are the number 6 seed. Chargers are the number 5 seed. The Bills are the number 7 seed. And then the number 4 seed, we have the 6 and 6 Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens are kind of on an island themselves here. They have the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6 and 6 battling with them. But I really don't think that the Steelers are going to leapfrog the Ravens just because of how they are declining right now. They're really, really suffering, so I'm just hoping that they get the win there. And then you have the Chargers, Colts, and Bills are all in the wild card spot. The Bills had a very good win. They've been very up and down. The Chargers have been very up and down. And the Colts have been more down than up. So if anything, I could see maybe the Colts dropping out of the playoff picture. I could see any of these 3 teams, Bills, Colts, or Chargers, dropping out of the playoff picture because neither of them have looked particularly strong. They all started the season really well, but they've all kind of been dropping off. You have the Texans at 7 and 5, the Chiefs at 6 and 6, and the Steelers at 6 and 6. Those are the 3 teams in the hunt right now, desperately vying for a playoff spot. Out of those 3 teams, I think you can pretty much count the Steelers out of it, to be honest. I don't think they're going to make it. And as for the Chiefs, I really don't know because they play really well. They are a good team. I stand by that, but they need to win some of these one-score games to have a chance. I think out of all 3 of them, I think the Texans have the best chance because they've been playing the best, and they're 7 and 6, which means that if, or 7 and 5 rather, sorry, which means that if they win and the Bills, Colts, or Chargers lose, which I mean the Jaguars or the Colts are going to lose, you're guaranteed to have an 8 and 5 team with them. And if the Texans win and they're 8 and 5, then division, I mean they're all in the same division, so a lot can jumble around, right? So a lot can change. So the Texans are sitting pretty, but they got to beat the Chiefs first. This is what I'm saying. So a lot of high stakes games coming up, guys. This is what makes the end of the season so exciting. Some teams, it's completely over for them, but some teams are fighting for their lives. So that concludes week 14. Thanks again for watching, guys. Football's getting exciting, and there are some must-watch games in the primetime slate. So I will catch you guys next week, and we will see how the playoff picture's changed. I'll see you guys later.